History is filled with strange tales, some too bizarre to believe. But what if I told you these actually happened? From a village that mysteriously fell asleep for days to the eerie moving coffins of Barbados, here are 10 of the strangest true stories from history. Keep watching to the end for the most bizarre one yet. And if you love uncovering history's weirdest moments, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's dive in. 1. The Green Children of Woolpit. In 12th century England, villagers in Woolpit made a shocking discovery. 2 children with green skin. They appeared suddenly, dressed in strange, unfamiliar clothing, and were found near a pit believed to be an old wolf trap. They spoke in a language no one recognized, refused all food except raw beans, and seemed utterly bewildered by their new surroundings. The boy, appearing weaker, eventually fell ill and died. But the girl slowly adapted, learning English and explaining that they came from St. Martin's Land, a twilight world where the sun never shone. According to the girl, their homeland was a place of eternal dusk, separated from this world by a vast river. She recalled that she and her brother had wandered into a cave while tending to their family's livestock and emerged into the bright, unfamiliar light of Woolpit. She struggled to describe exactly how they got there, leaving many to speculate on the truth behind their arrival. Many theories have emerged over the centuries. Some suggest the children suffered from hyperchromic anemia, a condition that can give the skin a greenish hue due to malnutrition. Others believe they were Flemish refugees who had fled war and persecution, their strange language simply being a regional dialect. More outlandish explanations propose they hailed from an underground civilization or even a parallel dimension. Despite centuries of speculation, the true origin of the Green Children remains a mystery, leaving us to wonder, were they simply lost children with a tragic past? Or did they truly step into our world from another? 2. The Siege of Weinsberg and the women's clever escape. In 1140 AD, the German king Conrad III conquered the town of Vinesburg after a long and bitter siege. The town had sided with the rival Welf faction in the ongoing conflict with the Hohenstaufens, making it a key target for Conrad's forces. After weeks of resistance, the city's defenses crumbled, and surrender became inevitable. Conrad declared that the men of Vinesburg would be executed, but he showed clemency to the women, allowing them to leave with whatever they could carry. Faced with an impossible choice, the women of Vinesburg demonstrated remarkable cunning. Instead of gathering their possessions, they carried their husbands on their backs, walking past the astonished soldiers of Conrad's army. The unusual sight amused Conrad, and despite the anger of his generals, he honored his word, permitting them to escape unharmed. The tale of the faithful women of Vinesburg has been retold for centuries, symbolizing intelligence, devotion, and courage in the face of destruction. Some accounts even suggest that Conrad was so impressed by the women's ingenuity that he spared the entire town from further destruction. The ruins of Vinesburg Castle still stand today, serving as a monument to one of the most remarkable instances of mercy and quick thinking in medieval history. 3. The village that fell asleep for days. Imagine waking up to find an entire village mysteriously asleep for days. In 2013, residents of Kalachi, Kazakhstan, started collapsing into deep, inexplicable slumber, sometimes for a week at a time. Victims would suddenly fall unconscious while working, eating, or even walking in the streets. Doctors were baffled. Was it mass hysteria? A strange illness? The truth was even stranger. Scientists eventually linked the sleeping sickness to toxic gases leaking from an abandoned Soviet uranium mine. The gases were causing localized oxygen deprivation, sending people into prolonged states of unconsciousness. As the phenomenon worsened, the government evacuated the village, turning Kalachi into a ghost town. Only a handful of former residents occasionally return, and the eerie legend continues to fascinate researchers and conspiracy theorists alike. 4. The Great Gold Robbery of 1855. A train carrying a fortune in gold left London in 1855 heading toward Paris. When it arrived, however, the precious cargo had been replaced with lead bars. There was no sign of forced entry, no alarms triggered, yet the gold was gone. The swap was executed so flawlessly that investigators were at a loss. It was later discovered that the thieves had access to duplicate safe keys and inside knowledge of railway security. They intercepted the cargo mid-transit, extracted the gold, and carefully resealed the safes again. The criminals were eventually caught, but most of the stolen gold was never recovered. The audacity of the crime forced authorities to rethink security measures for transporting valuables, paving the way for modern transportation security. 5. The time-traveling mummy of the Louvre. Could an ancient Egyptian mummy be moving through time? In the early 1900s, security guards at the Louvre Museum began reporting a bizarre phenomenon. One of the museum's mummies appeared to be changing positions at night. Some staff members even swore they saw its shadow moving behind the glass case. And there were reports of faint whispers and distant footsteps when no one else was around. The mummy in question was said to have belonged to a high-ranking Egyptian priest, rumored to have been involved in powerful rituals. Some museum staff refused to be near the exhibit after dark, claiming they felt an unnatural presence in the room. Over time, rumors spread beyond the museum, and the tale captured the public imagination. While skeptics dismissed it as a combination of pranksters, shifts in lighting, and optical illusions, the legend of the time-traveling mummy persisted. Some even suggested that the artifact carried an ancient curse, allowing it to shift dimensions or exist beyond the normal flow of time. Whether a case of collective superstition or something more, the tale remains one of the Louvre's strangest and most unsettling mysteries. 6. The Moving Coffins of Barbados. In Barbados, the Chase family tomb became infamous for its moving coffins. Every time the crypt was opened for a burial, the heavy lead caskets had shifted positions, sometimes standing upright, flipped over, or stacked in odd formations, as if tossed about by an unseen force. The tomb itself was a solid stone structure, tightly sealed between openings, making it even more baffling how the coffins moved without any signs of disturbance from the outside. The disturbances were first noted in the early 19th century when the tomb was opened for the burial of another Chase family member. Shocked by the inexplicable movements, the authorities resealed the tomb carefully, only to find the coffins once again displaced upon reopening. The phenomenon repeated itself multiple times with no logical explanation. There were no signs of forced entry, and flooding was ruled out as other nearby tombs remained undisturbed. Spooked by the repeated disturbances, the governor of Barbados ordered the tomb to be permanently sealed in 1820, with cement and heavy stones blocking any possible entry. Strangely, the movement stopped afterward, further deepening the mystery. Some researchers suggest underground water movement or gas buildups as possible explanations, while others argue that no scientific investigation has ever provided a definitive answer. Some locals believe the spirits of the Chase family were restless due to their tragic and reportedly cruel history. The legend continues to intrigue visitors and paranormal enthusiasts, making it one of the most enduring supernatural mysteries in the Caribbean. 7. The Man Who Stopped a War with a Single Word, 1940. During World War II, an entire French village was saved by accident. German forces had planned to execute all the civilians as part of a brutal retaliatory strike in response to local resistance activity. The townspeople, unaware of their impending fate, had no means of escape, and their destruction seemed imminent. However, at the last moment, a mysterious telegram arrived at the German command post with a single word: "Wait." The officer in charge, unsure if this was a higher command's order, hesitated, delaying the attack. In that pause, negotiations began between German officials and a neutral party. By the time clarity was sought, the situation had de-escalated and the massacre never happened. Later, it was discovered that the message was a clerical error, never intended for the German commander at all. It was likely meant for another unit regarding unrelated troop movements. A simple bureaucratic mistake had unintentionally spared hundreds of lives, proving that sometimes history can turn on the most unexpected moments of chance. 8. The Nazi plans for an army of talking dogs. As absurd as it sounds, Nazi scientists once attempted to train dogs to speak and read human language. The bizarre project, known as the Hundesprechschule, Dog Speech School, aimed to create an elite breed of intelligent dogs that could assist the war effort. The idea was that these specially trained canines could communicate with their handlers, guard prisoners, and perhaps even relay messages on the battlefield. Some reports even suggested that the Nazis envisioned these dogs replacing human radio operators in certain situations. According to historical accounts, some of the dogs in the program were allegedly taught to tap out words with their paws or bark in a pattern that resembled rudimentary speech. One dog was even rumored to have said the words "Mein Führer" in response to a trainer's question. However, No solid evidence exists that any of these training methods were truly successful. While the program was ultimately a failure, the mere fact that Hitler's researchers pursued such an experiment highlights the Nazi regime's obsession with unconventional warfare tactics. The idea of an army of talking dogs remains one of the strangest and most surreal footnotes in wartime history. 9. The ghost ship MV Joyita, 1955. In 1955, the MV Joyita was found drifting in the Pacific Ocean, completely abandoned. The ship was intact. Food, supplies, and even personal belongings were left untouched, but the entire crew had vanished without a trace. The radio was tuned to a distress signal, but no rescue ever came. The ship, originally bound for the Tokelau Islands from Samoa, was discovered over 600 miles off course with no sign of struggle or foul play. Despite missing lifeboats, there was no evidence that the crew had willingly abandoned the vessel. Theories abound. Was it pirates? A mutiny? A sudden mechanical failure that forced a chaotic evacuation? Or something even more sinister? What made the case even more baffling was the apparent seaworthiness of the vessel. Despite being found partially flooded, the Joyita was still floating due to its unique design, which made it nearly impossible to sink. If the crew had stayed on board, they likely would have survived. Additionally, logbooks and navigation equipment were missing, and strange damage was noted on parts of the ship, deepening the mystery. To this day, no trace of the 25 missing passengers and crew has ever been found. The MV Joyita remains one of the greatest maritime disappearances of the 20th century, leaving behind only speculation and unanswered questions. 10. The Paris Morgue, a 19th century public attraction. Imagine a time when viewing dead bodies was a popular pastime. In the 1800s, the Paris Morgue became one of the city's most visited attractions. Locals and tourists alike would line up to gawk at the recently deceased, displayed behind glass for identification purposes. Some visitors came out of morbid curiosity, while others treated it as a casual form of entertainment, bringing their families along as if attending a theatrical event. The morgue operated with an open-door policy, allowing thousands of people per day to observe the latest unclaimed bodies that had been recovered from the Seine River or found in the streets. Authorities believed public display would help relatives identify the deceased, but as word spread, the morgue became an unofficial tourist attraction. Travel guides even recommended it as a must-see site in Paris. The bodies were kept on slabs behind large glass windows, carefully arranged to maximize visibility. The scene became so popular that newspapers reviewed the best exhibits, and vendors sold snacks outside, further blurring the line between civic duty and grotesque spectacle. Authorities eventually grew uneasy with the public's fascination with death, and as identification methods improved, the practice of showcasing the dead became increasingly controversial. By the early 20th century, the Paris Morgue was finally closed to the public, marking the end of one of history's most macabre public attractions. History is stranger than fiction, and these stories prove it. Some are explained, others remain a mystery, but all remind us of the endless intrigue hidden in the past. Which story fascinated you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you love uncovering history's weirdest moments, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to History Crossroads. Until next time, keep exploring the mysteries of the past.